I'd like to call the regular monthly meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Fargo Park District to order today, Tuesday, August 3rd. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Do we have Joe?
He's online.
Okay. All right, no discussion. Dave, please poll the board.
Commissioner Griggs?
Aye.
You want me to go last? Commissioner Rosted?
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan?
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch?
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson?
Aye. The consent agenda carries. Regular agenda, any changes to the regular agenda?
No changes to the agenda, Madam President.
All right, do we have any audience members who would like to speak? Okay, seeing none. Dave, director's report?
We did hand out a written report for items some commissioners wished an update on. We have Yonker Farm update and Island Pool Public Engagement and Programming Study update. So you can read those at your leisure. If you have any other questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them.
So it looks like Yonker Farm's just kind of moving along in the right direction.
Yep.
Okay. All right, anybody? Okay. Brian, Foundation Director's report.
2 minutes, 1 minute, 1 minute. So first, the next foundation board meeting is August 16th. So 2 weeks from yesterday. And we're going to try to take another run at strategic planning. We wanted to do it at our last meeting, but a number of board members were not able to attend. So had to put that one on hold for a month. But hopefully, you know, it's probably a 2-month process. So I need to go through the results from the survey that was sent out to foundation board members, park board members, and park district lead staff. So go through those results, do a prioritization process, kind of a live, using your cell phone, you know, registering with an app online to reprioritize and add a little bit more input. And then we'll meet the following month, so it'll be in September, to kind of refine, you know, what our strategic plan is going to look like. So looking forward to getting that done. On the sports complex, I don't know that there's anything that's happened in the last week. I think we updated board members when we met 2 weeks ago on where we're at. We have a really important meeting coming up a week from today. So hopefully we'll have a fruitful conversation there and have something exciting to report, or at least make some progress on coming to a conclusion on a major gift. And you know, major gifts don't happen on our timetable, they happen on the giver's timetable. We've had a couple of other really good meetings this week, and so we're still totally optimistic. We're going to get this one out. And maybe I'll stop right there.
Meals on Wheels?
Meals, you know, things are going pretty well with the senior program. Participation is really picking up at our meal sites. We still offer the option of doing takeout meals, and I was looking at the numbers today. About a third of the meals that we do now are meals that are eaten at the senior center. So 2/3 are takeout or home delivered, which is quite a change. I mean, we went from 0 meals eaten at the sites to maybe 20%. So it's just kind of inching its way back to normal, and activities are going very well. Fun to see groups of people playing cards and chatting and drinking coffee, and volunteers, always looking for volunteers. 293-1440. You'll have fun doing it.
So Brian, what was the percentage before of in-person versus Meals on Wheels?
About 50-50.
Okay, so we are still skewed, definitely.
Oh, yeah. And we will be probably, we're receiving a special pot of money right now that allows us to do takeout meals. In the past, takeout meals were not allowed
Okay.
to be counted, to be reimbursed. This pot of money will probably last through the middle of next year. So during that period of time, there's going to be takeout meals. And
Sure.
people prefer that.
Yeah,
I mean, hopefully that'll result in a change in how the funding can be used long-term.
sure.
Because
And
there's a group of people that are uncomfortable eating in a public setting no matter what.
Sure. And so we saw that number boost with COVID, and it will probably never go back to nothing as long as the funding allows it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it changes the way federal funding can be spent and we'll be able to allow takeout meals.
Sure. Do you have a way to give input on that or not?
We do, but an effective way? I'm not sure.
Sure. All right, fair enough.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Just tying into the sports complex, number of us attended a joint meeting with the school board and the city commission and the park district last night. And Dave put on a nice presentation that included the sports complex with the video with Irv and a number of other organizations that would benefit user groups and that. And it was very well received. People were excited. It was fun to see their reaction of, whoa, what are you doing? And they know, but seeing the video makes a difference when people see it. So Dave did a nice job. All right, moving on.
Usually gets everybody fired up, so it was good.
That's what he said. That's what you said last night, and it is still true today. Okay, number 4, presentation on Urban Woods and Prairie Initiative Program, Sarah Hewitt. Sarah is the Conservation Programs Manager for Audubon, Dakota. And as I told her before our meeting, she is the first. So we'll see how this goes. We decided we wanted to bring in our user groups and invite them to the board meeting to tell us about themselves and maybe how we work together and if there's anything we can do to help you.
And commissioners, we picked Sarah and Audubon, Dakota because we knew they would do a very nice job. So this is her second presentation today, so.
So the bar is up here now, Sarah.
Yeah, apparently. Hopefully I don't disappoint you guys. Thank you so much for having me here today, for inviting me, and for, I guess, trusting me to be the first in this series. So yeah, I'm here to talk about our Urban Woods and Prairies initiative. For those of you who may be not as familiar with this program, this is a really leading and important initiative for Audubon, Dakota. It began in 2014 as a partnership between Audubon, Dakota and the Parks District, Fargo Parks District in particular. Our previous executive director, Marshall Johnson, some of you may know him, he concocted this idea of, identifying parks along the Red River that had previously been idle flood buyout areas that had the real potential to become high quality bird habitat, right within city limits. And so they sought out to restore and enhance these areas for not only bird habitat, but to restore those important ecological services that come along with restored habitat, reducing management and maintenance costs for our partners like the Fargo Park District, and then also providing, a new recreational opportunity for this community, getting them reconnected with nature and providing them a wider variety of opportunities to be outside. So today we have in total 13 urban nature parks. That should say in Fargo. And that's a total of 308 acres enrolled. Oops. Oh, that went by itself. Okay. And let's see. So then we just received a North Dakota Outdoor Heritage Fund grant of about $591,000 to continue the expansion of the Urban Woods and Prairies initiative throughout Fargo and actually across North Dakota as well. So Fargo has been a really important pilot project for this initiative, and we've been able to prove the success of this concept so that we can actually be expanding throughout North Dakota. And a part of that expansion impact is 2 new sites here in Fargo. So we're adding in Lindenwood, going to be working with Sam, the forester, Sam Damaris, to identify areas for common buckthorn removal and potentially replanting native trees within the Lindenwood Park. And then the Southwest Fargo Pond, I know that's a collaboration between the city of Fargo and the Fargo Park District. That's a really exciting site, as it'll be, that's a brand new amenity for that region. So, just really incorporating nature. I know there's the pond that's being created there. That's going to be really great habitat and a learning opportunity for those citizens in that area.
Can I ask a question? What's the park or the above the Lindenwood Park? I can't.
Lindenwood Park. Pontus Prairie.
And what is that? Just the area north of Lindenwood?
Yes,
along
exactly.
the river?
So they're basically connected. If you follow that trail.
Okay.
Yep. It's a wide open field, just restored grasslands and wildfires or wildflowers there.
I'd also like to ask, what is the acreage of that Southwest Fargo pond, the entire site?
I believe it's 160 acres in total, with the potential to add even a little bit more, right, off to the west there.
Yeah, I think that entire quarter there is shown as 160 acres, and the pond will be approximately 80 acres. And that's actual, for the bounds of the pond. And then we're going to work with the city of Fargo engineering department to try to secure either 1 or 2, 6 to 10 acre parcels associated with that pond for some adjacent park amenities and everything else. And I think the city has plans, for that remaining acreage, whether they sell that off or develop it or somehow. But we would have a presence out there with parks.
Thank you.
Oops. So like I said, this really started in about 2014, 2015. We actually were able to get the funding and then get these sites restored. And they started with just 5 sites, right, across 160 acres. And those included Heritage Hills, Forest River, Briarwood, which is now Bison Meadows, Pontes Prairie, and then Unicorn Park. And today, with the 2 new sites that we're bringing on with the expansion, we've grown to 15 sites over 500 acres. That's really substantial. And what we've tried to do as well is keep pretty contiguous habitat, right? So selecting sites that allows us to unfragment the habitat along the Red River for our migratory birds, our migratory wildlife, while also making sure that we're within communities where folks can just walk or bike to these sites, so it's highly accessible. We've been able to really increase our environmental engagement opportunities as well with these, with the urban woods and prairies sites. We have collaborated with the Fargo Park District, local universities, K through 12 schools as well, to incorporate more community science events like bird counts or bio blitzes. We've had pollinator garden plantings at a number of these sites too, collaborating with Fargo Parks again, but then other outside partners like the Fargo Lions Club and even Microsoft has helped us with some of those plantings. We do native seed harvests and then birding walks. The birding festival is obviously a really huge event for us out at Forest River. And then we've also incorporated birding into the Frostival, which can be a little hit or miss depending on how below zero it is. But so it's really ramped up our own engagement opportunities with Audubon Dakota. And then of course, we're increasing the recreational amenities at these sites too. We're partnering with the Fargo Park District with the 5-mile trail system that we had received in recreational trail program grant for in, was that 2018, I think. So that's, improved the accessibility for birding, hiking, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing. We've worked with other funding sources to get like a kayak launch out at Forest River. So just increasing the things, right, that people can do out in nature. And we see a lot of people doing photography at many of these sites. And then, we have the urban hunting component as well. And so we're just improving the habitat for those target species. The ecological impact, this is where Audubon really came in as our focus. And we wanted to improve the ecological services, right, that come along with having these natural grasslands, healthy riparian woodlands, so that we can improve the flood resiliency, soil health and stability, which is really huge, right, in these riparian areas, water filtration and infiltration, keeping the water clean, and then of course having just overall healthy urban habitat for our target bird species. And I just wanted to share some photos of non-game birds that have been photographed at a lot of our sites here. Dan Mason, you guys may know him. He's a really great birder in the community and also a really awesome nature photographer. So these are a couple of his shots here. And just wanted to kind of brag about the overall avian species richness that we've seen at these sites. 2019 was the last time we were able to actually get surveys out there for, obvious reasons with COVID and everything. But Forest River came in with the highest amount of species at 24. Forest River is really known for the migratory warblers that utilize that area. It's been designated as an important bird area actually because of all the warblers that visit there. And then Heritage Hills came in with about 22 species. This is the first UWP site that I saw a true grassland bird at, and that was called the bobolink. If you ever, I would suggest looking it up. It has just this really musical song to it, and it's very indicative of a healthy grassland. So that was super exciting to see.
I'd like to ask, are you dependent upon volunteer observers for the bird counts, or do you have some other way that you do them?
Yeah, so we actually hire seasonal employees to conduct a lot of the monitoring for us. And then I have been, and I'll touch on this a little bit later, trying to collaborate more with our university partners too, because these sites are just really excellent resources for scientific research. This is unique work and it should be studied. And I'm actually working right now with a professor at NDSU to hopefully get like a couple years of bird data at these sites. But usually too, we have a really strong birding community here. And so if they see something special or something like that, they'll be reporting it to us, which is really nice.
Do you happen to know how many pileated woodpeckers there are?
Oh, I do not, but there are a lot. Yeah.
Well, I mean, most people will say they've never seen one.
Really?
Yeah, I was walking with someone and she said, I've never seen a pileated woodpecker. And I looked up and there was right above it. And
Yeah.
so people say they're rare because they like to stay away from people.
Okay.
So I was just wondering about the pileated.
Yeah, I mean, I should look back at because I know they've been recorded at most of at least most of the sites that have riparian woodlands. And I actually live by one of our sites on the Moorhead side, and we have a very healthy pileated woodpecker population there.
I've heard the same thing Don said, and I have my sister's brother-in-law near the St. Louis, Missouri area said he saw one for the first time within the last couple months. And I thought, well, maybe you want to come get the noisy guy.
Yeah,
near us.
right?
Because they make a lot of racket.
They definitely do.
But they're very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, very.
It's exciting to see them. All right, so I'm just gonna get really quick into like the gritty details, I guess, of like how the nuts and bolts of this program, of how we restore and how we are enhancing these riparian woodlands. So for grassland restoration, A part of the partnership we have with the Fargo Park District and other partners as well is that they would be responsible for the full site preparation so that would include like mowing and then an herbicide, a couple herbicide treatments that follow our contractor's guidance, just to prepare the seed bed as best as possible, you know, be reducing that weed seed bed so that the native plants that we are investing a lot of money into can have the best chances possible to be successful. So after that's completed, our contractor, who is now MNL, or Minnesota Native Landscapes, they come in and do the native seeding. We have collaborated with them to create this high diverse seeding with more than 30 different native species. So that includes grasses and native wildflowers, or forbs. And then they'll come in and really be monitoring that site. We do our own vegetation monitoring as well, just to be informing ourselves of like kind of like the plant inventory. But they're really visiting like 2 to 3 times each summer, all of these sites, and then practicing, you know, either mowing or spot spraying for those weeds. Because as I'm sure if you guys have been out to the sites that have been newly seeded, they can look a little rough. And so we really need that maintenance to control the weeds, and then also just to have a, you know, positive public perception as well of the project. For woodland enhancement, we really focus on invasive species removal. So within the riparian areas, common buckthorn around here is the main culprit. It's everywhere, and it's really not great habitat, not good for birds or wildlife, and it spreads really easily. And so that's quite a battle. And so we, again, contract M&L for that work, where they do mechanical removal and then do a chemical follow-up for a couple of years afterwards to get those resprouting buckthorn that will definitely happen. And then, like I had kind of alluded to with the Grassland Restoration, we are committed to a 3 to 5 year management, follow-up management through this partnership. We want to make sure that when we, you know, are no longer managing it and we kind of hand it over back to the park district to manage, that these sites are looking stellar, right? Like, we want to be hitting our habitat goals, and just like aesthetically too, we want them to be looking really great before we hand them back over to you guys. So we've taken on management for the first 3 to 5 years. And, you know, like I mentioned before, that includes mowing, spot spraying, and within that 3 to 5 year period, at some point we do a prescribed fire, actually, where it's appropriate, right? Like, some of these sites can't quite do that if they're smack dab in a neighborhood, but that's a very important aspect to grassland management. It's a historical disturbance event, you know, coupled with like grazing. That's how prairies thrive. So we try to incorporate that as well. A couple highlights for you guys. You know, I've mentioned Forest River a couple of times. This is really just a star site for us, and has been one of the original 5 sites that started back in 2015. We did grassland restoration on 16 acres. We've done buckthorn removal, I think back in 2018, 2019, and we continue to work with M&L to control that species. This was one of the sites where we did the recreational trail as well, and is also a very popular, you know, just super popular with the public. People are there constantly. It was really great that the park district put in that parking lot, have bathroom facilities there now. We also have the kayak launch there. So that's really opened it up for a lot of outreach events. So we, you know, coordinate a lot with local schools, birding folks, and as you can see here, that's a picture from one of the past birding festivals in May. So it's just a really great site. And finally, the grassland area where you like drive in, it's finally getting flowers popping up. And so it's looking really beautiful. Lions Conservancy Park is a newer site that we planted, I think at the end of 2019. And so we have 5 acres of restoration, and then we also conducted buckthorn removal there because that was quite a problem within those woodlands. And in 2020, I had actually went out there to a lot of the sites and did just a quick inventory. I found 25 different native plant species out there, which that was like its first full growing season. That's an amazing result. And that was on that west side. If you, excuse me, drive by west side closest to the road, that's where I found most of those species. And here's a picture of all the diversity that's out there. This site has provided a lot of learning experiences for us too, because the site or the area that's east and more towards the river, that, you know, is obviously flooded more and has a different soil component, I guess, to it, or soil makeup. And so that's a bigger challenge for us. And we have to do a lot more maintenance out there, a lot more mowing and spot spraying because there's thistles and things like that coming up where we don't see that really on that west side. So that's been really interesting to see that even just at one site, we have to approach management so differently.
Oh, could I ask about the buckthorn problem? What is the origination of the problem itself?
So people would just plant it because it's a the leaves stay green for a very long time, and so it was like a cultivar species that people would just plant in their yards as a tree that kept its leaves longer. It was greener longer, and it has berries on it that birds really like to eat, and it's, you know, a diuretic, and so it spreads really easily thanks to birds. And it also creates like it creates its own perfect conditions with soil, so it like prevents other species from growing around it. So it just spreads and spreads and spreads. But yeah, it started as a cultivar and has spread from there. Okay, so to wrap up, I just wanted to cover some future plans that we have for Urban Woods and Prairies Initiative. You know, I had mentioned a little bit previously that we have volunteers that show up. We really recruit from our colleges, retirees, or just really families who are looking to spend more time out in nature. And the Urban Stewardship Network provides folks the opportunity to go out and do seed collection, seeding, and then even, you know, if they want to get their hands really dirty, they can do some buckthorn removal with us in the winter. So just really getting them that experience of what does it mean to truly be restoring these natural areas. And then, of course, we want to be adding additional sites. Here's that southwest pond. And then, like I said, we'll have Lindenwood. And it's been really fun to work with the Fargo Park District because you guys just like get the concept, right? You understand it, you trust us, which is really nice. And we've been working on, you know, more of a handful of projects that are maybe more of like your typical park setting, but you're incorporating these pollinator gardens so that visitors can understand the importance, right, of these native communities. And so I really hope that we can continue that part of this initiative, whether it's like just us giving you ideas or consulting, that sort of thing. That's been really special. And then, of course, like I said previously, I would like to see a little bit more research incorporated into these sites to really be monitoring how are we impacting these urban bird and wildlife species, the plant community, and even like how is the community responding to this type of work. Wanted to recognize all of our really great funding support. You know, North Dakota Outdoor Heritage Fund has been a really big one and important, and they continue to be as well, and all these other folks too. Of course, I want to thank Fargo Park District for your awesome partnership. So that's it.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add, I mean, Sarah mentioned Marshall Johnson, and he kind of took Audubon, Dakota to the next level, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, 10, 15 years ago. And Sarah came on board, alongside Marshall, and they've done a great job. She talked about Lions Conservancy Park, and we tried, planting back to natives probably 15 years ago, and it just really didn't take off because we didn't have the expertise or their resources to do what needed to be done. And then, we just started mowing it to keep the weeds down. They came back and, as she said, replanted in 2019. And, in 2 years, they've got 20 plus species of natives in there. So they've done a great job. They're an excellent resource for us. Probably looking at sometime in the future as they transition these properties back to us is maybe partnering with them with, a resource specialist and onto our forestry staff, just so we can maintain these areas like they need to be maintained. But, all the credit goes to Sarah and Marshall and their group. So.
Thank you.
Mhm. How are you funded?
So a lot of, if you, see that
Yep.
there, majority is through grants. So Outdoor
Okay.
Heritage Fund, we have about now 3 different grants that have funded specifically the Urban Woods and Prairies Initiative. Their funding actually jump-started it in 2014. I think that was the first grant that had supported it. Game and Fish has really stepped up as well to support it, which is awesome. And then there's Starion and the Trust. And then we just, connect with these local businesses as well and organizations, kind of pitching the idea, and they support it. And a little bit less so, but we also have like private individuals that have donated towards EWP.
And do you have partnerships with private landowners?
Nope, this is all with public municipalities. Yep. Because we want folks to be able to actually explore these sites,
Sure.
right, and not have them closed
Sure.
off. Yep.
Sure, makes sense.
Especially because a lot of the funding is from state and everything.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Very
We appreciate
informative.
it.
Well, I think we'll keep this going since Sarah hit it out of the park. Thanks, Sarah. All right, moving on to agenda item number 5, board to consider approval of recommendation for Fargo Park District Foundation on grant match program grant applications. Brian Arrett, presenter.
I gotta turn lights back on because the eyes are failing. So.
That sounds like an issue we won't bring up.
Thank you. Yes, the grant match program, which is a program that was founded by the Park Board, and the Park District Foundation assists in kind of reviewing applications that come in and then makes recommendations to the Park Board. This is our second round for 2021. So applications were due June 30th. Foundation met middle part of July, reviewed the apps that we'd received. And as you can see from the memo that we sent out, there were 3 applications from Red River Infinity Volleyball, Tri-City United Soccer, and Green Infrastructure Design. Now the process, the guidelines that we have issued, for these grants include proposals that provide some added amenity to the park district, whether it's to a park. So maybe if somebody did a playground upgrade or something like that and proposed, helping to pay for half of that as an incentive for the park district to maybe do that sooner than they normally would, that's like the perfect example of an amenity that fits the grant match program. So of the 3 applications we had, we determined that 2 don't really fit the guidelines. So I'm just going to kind of walk through that real quickly, and then if you have questions, you can ask. The one that we are recommending be funded was submitted by Tri-City United Soccer Club. And what they're asking for is assistance to purchase new goals, soccer goals. They want to purchase 20 additional soccer goals. And they want to spread those out between the Pepsi Soccer Complex and Centennial School. And they want to make those available outside of, Tri-City United Soccer events. They want to make those available to other users of those complexes. Again, that's a really perfect example of a shared use. They're going to provide $6,000 in matching funds to $6,000 that the foundation board is recommending that we support for this shared use type of amenity that's being added to the park district. So the recommendation from the foundation board is to accept that proposal to provide matching funds for that. Second proposal that was received was from Red River Infinity Volleyball, a great program, providing incredible service, to the community. But what they're asking for is for support to rent court space for their program. So something specific to Red River Infinity Volleyball would not be an amenity that would be available to the community at large or to other user groups. They're looking for assistance to help them rent space. Great thing to do, and might be something the park district would consider doing outside of the auspices of the grant match program, but doesn't fit with the grant match program at all because it doesn't provide any enhanced opportunity for people outside of Red River Infinity Volleyball. So the foundation board is recommending not approving that proposal because it doesn't fit the guidelines. Kind of simple. And then the third one, really, I would call it an outlier. It's a business that's not located in Fargo, Green Infrastructure Design, and they're proposing reviewing existing systems in the park district where green infrastructure can be implemented and developing mobile apps to expedite processes for park district staff on managing, our facilities. Doesn't have anything to do with the grant match program, provides no amenity for the public. They're not even proposing a match. They're asking us to give them money to provide this service for the park district. So it doesn't fit the criteria, the guidelines for the grant match program at all. So for me, it's a non-starter. Might be a great idea, but it doesn't have a thing to do with the grant match program. So the foundation board is recommending not approving that proposal as well. So again, we're just recommending that the proposal from Tri-City United Soccer be funded, that the other two not be funded. We have had conversations with Red River Infinity Volleyball, and I think they're, trying to figure out a different way to submit an application that meets our criteria. And I don't know where that might go. So with that, I'd answer any questions.
Brian, do you need so at Tri-City Soccer, it's approximately $6,000, potentially some extra change. Do we need to make our motion maybe to have a larger number than that? Or can the foundation work within those parameters without us picking a maximum number? Or what would you suggest?
I think that's a good question, Madam Chair. I think it would make sense to say up to $6,500.
Okay.
Just so if their price comes in at $6,250,
Okay.
we are able to support that and fund that.
Sounds good. Rather than you having to come back here.
Just money.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody want to?
No, but thank you for outlining the guidelines for the grant match program. It's still new and it's good to talk about it.
Sure.
Each one, so it helps to understand why some get through, some don't, so.
Yep, absolutely.
I wanted to talk about the grant match program a little bit. It's just an idea that came up when I heard Brock talking about all the extra money, the $50,000 that the park district had. And I said, to which there was a horsey laugh from the majority except Brian. Why don't you give it to the foundation? And, so Brock, of course, said, well, that's not the thing that we do. And everybody agreed. But I was thinking about the grant match program and how the possibilities to expand that might go beyond what it's been in the past. One of the reasons that I thought about that was that the park district is kind of everywhere, but there are organizations that or projects by individuals that may match the mission of the park district to apply for some of these, what I would consider smaller amounts of funds with matches to do specific things. So this to me would mean that some of the grant match projects could be off park grounds, but it would also be credited to the park district with the logos and that sort of thing. So in my thinking, it was a way of just expanding the park district out further, connecting to other organizations and other people, which is part of the mission, and just becoming more involved with a wider community. So it's just an idea, but as a person who comes from a 501c3, we're always looking for grants. Wouldn't be something that you'd work with us because we're primarily arts and culture, but there are so many small projects with individuals that are really enthusiastic about doing some specific project that I think this could be something to consider in the future as to a part of your grant match program.
Well, and certainly, the grant match program is one that was designed, it was modeled after Bismarck Park District. They have a very similar program, but was implemented by the park board. So the park board has the authority to make whatever adjustments or changes they'd like to make to it. So I think it's a conversation that the board should have if they want to consider changing the guidelines and broadening what is fundable or not.
But I think I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think our guidelines are good. I think our reach to who might potentially be able to receive something could be better. I think historically, and we're still in the infancy, so I'm not saying we've done a poor job. We just, we're still trying to figure out how we're doing this, right? And who we're gonna try and get to be part of it. So
Not offended.
I think historically, it's been the obvious things are soccer goals and the batter's eye behind the ball field. Some of those things that are physical, simple, make sense with parks seem obvious to us. Even the gardens, some of the things they're using. So I think there's an easy way, or there's a way to incorporate Don's idea within our parameters. It's just, how do we get to the arts and the culture, and then we just have to decide if it's going to be on park land or not on park property. But we have so much combined property with schools and cities that a lot of that's probably adaptable. But I think it's the marketing of it that we need to work on.
I don't think it would be too difficult to market. The other thing that I had come up was with Brian had said that there are so few applications. And it's the same groups that apply again and again. So that started my thoughts about how to expand that then to be more beneficial to a larger community. So I just like the idea because I like the idea of expansion, number one, but I like the idea of the park district being out there and connecting to even more groups than it already does.
Yeah, and I think that's something we can look at, and I think we'd have to, look at the guiding principles or whatever if it's off park property. I mean, I think Brian outlined them very well there, but I think we can look at some of those things for, whether that's all art and culture or some type of private individual type thing, providing it kind of follows our mission statement. So I think we can look at adjusting some of those things.
I don't think it would be difficult to write guidelines for those particular groups. just coming off whatever your mission is, I just think about, one of the things I think about a lot is all of the beautiful horticulture. It's just incredible. Whoever the designer is that does the park district plans for the plantings is just an amazing person. And if someone suggested that we could develop something that came out of, the knowledge or the skill of whoever that designer is, I mean, that would be a really fun project to do. And it could be done anywhere, as long as there was control of the land and it wasn't necessarily on private property. But I just think all the time about the things that could be done with just not a lot of money, but with a match. And the match would be the effort that they had made to make this work. So I just like the idea of who it is that we could benefit and then how we could expand our image.
I think this will be part of the whole process the foundation goes through when we sit back and look at the survey and how we move forward. Because one thing with the foundation, we are in the infancy stage. They're still funded by the park district. And how does the funding change? Does that model change down the line? If it does, how does that differentiate the two and make two independent entities? And how we manage taxpayer dollars, because I think that right now we're taking taxpayer dollars and putting it into this foundation and funding programs. And that's kind of why we have stuck on a fairly rigid criteria to qualify. But I think it's, part of the evolvement of the whole process. So I think it's good information to take back to the foundation board and discuss as we, grow up a little bit. So.
And so you were referring to the foundation board, not the board of directors of the park district.
No, I was referring to the park board.
Okay.
Program was designed by the park board. Again, the foundation board just has kind of an administrative role. They review the apps when they come in, using the guidelines that were developed by the park board, and make a recommendation. And certainly if you want the foundation board to make a stab at making adjustments, I think it'd be helpful to have a little bit better description of where it is we want to go before we start going there.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, in the meantime, does anyone entertain a motion about the Tri-City United Soccer Club?
Yeah, I'll
Grant.
move that we do the grant match program with the Tri-City United Soccer Club up to $6,500 as described in the submission.
Second. Any further discussion? Dave, please pull the board.
Commissioner Griggs,
Aye.
Commissioner Rosted,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson.
Aye, motion carries. Number 6, I believe, Ron. Board to receive preliminary 2022 budget. Dave Leaker, presenter, with, I'm guessing, a backup.
Yeah, commissioners, we did review our preliminary budget at our facility/budget meeting last Wednesday and presented you with a sheet and a half of budget highlights for the 2022 preliminary budget. The budget has come in balanced, and while I'm not the brains behind the budget, I did participate, but Brock and his team and Luke Evenson is here as well to help answer questions if there are any. But they did a great job along with all the directors and their staff to put this budget together and get it to balance. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Brock to touch on some of the highlights of the highlights. So Brock.
Thank you, Dave. Madam President, members of the board, we bring to you tonight for preliminary approval the preliminary fiscal year 2022 budget. As Dave said, the budget is balanced from a general fund perspective, and we're very happy about that. We did see an increase in the general fund of approximately 10.96%, and that is tied to how we get our revenues. As you're aware, we tie that to valuation increases through the city assessor's office of taxable property throughout the city of Fargo. We also receive state aid through the state and a pass through the city, as well as then any fees that we collect for the programs that we provide. In looking at the new revenues, we accounted for a 6% increase in property valuations. We accounted for roughly a 5% increase in state aid, and then we use the Consumer Price Index, CPI, from March 1st to March 1st, so March of 2020 to March of 2021. That CPI index that we used was 2.61%, and we 2.6%, and we tied that to revenue collections and increase pricing accordingly to that CPI. Important to note that we are not recommending a mill levy increase for the general fund for operations itself. However, as you know, we have discussed issuing general obligation debt for two major capital projects, which are the Fargo Sports Complex and the Island Park Pool renovation. That general fund, general obligation bonds that we would potentially issue equal $44 million and would carry with it a commitment of a 4.19 mil increase purely to service those bonds. As you are aware, we did put out a 60-day protest period earlier this year. That protest period expired on June 14th of 2021, and we did not receive any formal protests to that notice. And so that 4.19 mil increase is part of your preliminary budget that we are presenting to you today. Also included from an expense standpoint within your budget, we did have some new positions identified, and we visited with you in detail about what those potentially would be as we move forward. In total, there were 7 new positions, but as we are always do within the Park District, we try to look at efficiencies and have some addition by subtraction as we've had turnovers. So although a position is new, the FTE increase is about 3.5 FTEs because we might have had turnover. We redesigned the position, reallocated responsibilities, created a new position, but it didn't necessarily increase the budget. The other thing that we've included in this preliminary budget is a pool for compensation increases that equals 4% of last year's compensation. Again, we tie that to CPI. So internally, we would look at that 4% breaking down as 2.6% of cost of living, and then 1.4% for us to use to make sure that we remain competitive in the market and provide merit increases for those individuals who continue to go above and beyond to serve the citizens here in Fargo. So we want to continue to be an employer that stays competitive and can attract and retain the best talent. Also in that, the assumptions for expenses, we have a 7% increase for health insurance. We believe that that will allow us to continue to provide a robust health insurance plan for our employees. And we have a cost share on that of 75% employer, 25% employee. So of that 7% increase, a small percentage would be passed on to employees, and the Park District would pick up 75% of that. As we look at what the increases were within the expense side of the budget, we have a $1.6 million increase in capital expenditures, and that is really tied to a commitment that we have to continue to improve and upgrade our existing facilities and properties that we own, as well as the equipment that we have to maintain those facilities and properties. We want to make sure that we continue to not leave any of our existing facilities behind in staying caught up in deferred maintenance and things of that nature. So we do see an increase in this year's budget as we go forward from a capital expenditure standpoint. We also, as you know, are in the infancy of Broadway Square, and we continue to offer a new and exciting programming opportunity in downtown Fargo in collaboration with private partners. And because of the pandemic, that has been open only about 7.5 months. And so we're still learning a lot about the type of programming and the things that we'll do there. And so we have a plan and a strategy in place to continue to improve that programming, look for sponsorship opportunities, and make sure we're providing new opportunities in that area. One of the drivers, both of revenue and expense, is golf. As you know, we have 5 public golf courses, and we operate them for the benefit of the community and the patrons. Over the last 2 years, golf has seen a resurgence in popularity, and people continue to buy memberships and come and play and pay green fees, and we've seen an increase in revenues there. We're looking at about a $755,000 increase in revenues in golf again for 2022, and we're very excited about the success that continues to have. That also has some increased expense when we talked about the capital projects. We've got a number of items specifically tied to our golf courses that are important for us to make sure that we're maintaining and staying on top of, that is driving a lot of the capital expenditures that we have as well in the budget. A change that you will see in the preliminary budget ties to how we maintain our pools, and specifically there is a decrease in expenditures of $755,000 in the pool line item, and that is predominantly because of the capital project that we're talking about for Island Park Pool. We continue to have a philosophy of trying to pre-fund major capital projects, so we had a transfer in the current budget of $750,000. If we could proceed with the capital project into next year, which we'll be bonding for, we would then see a subsequent decrease in that transfer, because that project will be completed and we wouldn't have to do that transfer going forward. If you look at the preliminary budget that we submitted to you, the biggest increase in revenues is in the administrative line, and the reason for that is because that's where we record all of our tax revenue collections. It is tied to the administrative line that we manage here at the administrative level. So that is purely how we collect our revenues and where we record those. So again, I would tell you that we feel very happy and comfortable with the preliminary budget, balanced as it's presented to you today. We will continue to work on it between now and final approval. There may be some adjustments we make between line items, but we certainly do not expect that it will change the bottom line of the budget nor the mill levy impact. And we would be bringing to you for final approval at a later time the final budget with all of the information, including our 2 capital projects for a final decision. With that, I will stand for any questions that you may have.
I know that we discussed this recently, but under operations number 12 and 2, the major capital expenses would be, number 1 is the master plan for Lindenwood Island Park and Yunker Farm. And you had indicated how that broke down between the 3.
Yes.
Yeah, and do you remember how that was done?
Yeah, off the top of my head, Commissioner Morgan, I don't recall. The $250,000, as you say, is for those 3 master plans, and I'll look at Dave. I think he's seen this. Lindenwood, do you know the exact breakdown of the 250?
Yeah, I don't think we have an exact number for Lindenwood master plan. We haven't sought estimates for that. We did get a preliminary price for the Yunker Farm master plan, which helped bring us to this total. And I think our director team kind of just said we need to put some funds in here for these master plans, and that's why we came up. I think the Yunker Farm one was like 125,000, and then we wanted to set aside some funds for Island and Yunker Farm, realizing that that was just one budget price for Yunker Farm. So that kind of gave us a ballpark of what they cost.
Okay, so you weren't thinking about them being individually, the expense being about the same. It seems like Yunker, well, Lindenwood may be smaller, do you think? Because.
Yeah, and that,
already
as we
been-
mentioned before, that was kind of one ballpark price for Yonker Farm. We don't see it being that expensive, so we kind of, took the lesser of that. We're probably thinking more of that, 80, 70, 75,000 a piece. Is kind of just a budget price. We haven't got quotes or anything like that. It's just kind of a placeholder.
Okay, and so I'm just thinking that the Island Park is probably, I don't know this, but assuming that it's probably going to be more expensive. I'm not sure, but then is this 250, is that variable then within the budget?
No, that would be our line item for 250. We'd not exceed that,
Okay,
and we'll break that up between the individual projects. So.
Okay.
We just realized we need a placeholder for funding of master plans, and that's kind of what we decided to land on.
okay, thank you.
I just want to say thanks for the hard work, Brock and Luke and everybody that was involved in the directors putting this budget together. Last week I learned about the air compressor. What is the Rose Creek tunnel lid? What?
Rose Creek, where we store our carts, as you walk up
Oh.
to the restaurant there, it walks up and over the tunnel. And basically it's just a box culvert. And they had originally put a concrete topping on that back when Rose Creek was constructed. And I believe probably between 5 and 10 years ago in Roger's time and Vic Pellerano's time, they put an epoxy topping on that. And that's just to, kind of remove that topping and apply a new coating for that, because all that moisture gets down and starts rotting the concrete, and we don't want it to get into the reinforcing rebar. So it's just a new top on that.
We're being proactive.
Before we have to replace the box culverts, yes, correct.
I couldn't think of a tunnel, but then when you brought up the Rose Creek or the cart tunnel, then I was like, oh, okay.
Well, now you learned something new.
Yeah, we can learn something every week.
That's right. One thing though, just one.
Yeah, I want to echo what Jerry said, especially after a year of complete upheaval and uncertainty, and we're still in the midst of that, to try and guess to some extent and predict what's going to happen, and hopefully we get it pretty close. But it's a lot of moving parts, so thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to accept the budget as presented.
I'll second it.
Second.
Doesn't matter.
Well, now we know Joe's still there. Hi, Joe.
Hi, everybody. I'm listening attentively.
Any further discussion? Dave, please pull the board.
Commissioner Griggs?
Aye.
Commissioner Rosted?
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan?
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch?
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson?
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners.
Madam President,
Yes.
briefly, I would also like to take the opportunity to thank my peers on the director team, as well as all their managers within their departments. Putting a budget together is a lot of work, and it takes a team effort. And I certainly believe in a philosophy of making sure that all of those that are directly involved help build it, so they understand what goes into it. And also to Luke Evenson, our controller, the compilation of all of this flows through his office and desk, and he puts a lot of time and effort into that. So he deserves a lot of the credit for what happens here as well. So thank you to our team.
Are you blushing? Do I got everybody to turn around and look at you? Very good. Thanks, Brock. Any other business? All right. So I get a motion to adjourn. So moved. I made it.
Thank you.
Made it for the last one.
Thank you, everybody.